Hey everyone! In this two-part mini-series, we're going to create this smartwatch scene in Blender. We'll spend the entire first part modeling all the objects. And in the second part, we'll set up all the materials and build our final scene. The shaders will be quite simple, using ready-made textures. Turn on orthographic mode and add our first reference image to the scene. In the Reference Properties tab, let's adjust its opacity and set it so we can only see it in the top and bottom views. Next, let's add a plane to the scene. Switch to Edit mode. Make the plane wider and taller to match our reference. Press Ctrl plus Shift plus B to bevel the vertices and increase the number of segments to 6. In the last operator panel, adjust the shape profile parameters and the width to get the closest match to the reference. Use the Inset tool by pressing I to inset a face, and then press Shift plus R to repeat this action twice. Switch to the side view and add our second reference image to the scene. Just like with the first one, adjust its opacity and check the box to make it visible only in the right and left views. Based on the size of the plane we already created, adjust the size of the second reference image. Select all the vertices except for the outermost ones and start pulling them up in the side view. Hold Ctrl to deselect and lift the remaining part. Check the face orientation of the normals. Then, right-click and choose Shade Smooth and add a Subdivision Surface modifier set to level 2. When checking the surface using Matcap, we can see some slight stretching at the corners. To fix this, we'll simply insert another face into the center using the Inset tool. Select the outer ring of vertices in Edit mode and press P to separate them into a new object. Let's make this object slightly larger. Press F to create an ingon and use the Inset tool twice to insert faces. Switch to the side view and extrude everything down based on the reference. And do the exact same thing at the bottom. Insert a face twice using the Inset tool. Let's also set it to Shade Smooth. Press Ctrl plus R to create a loop cut right in the middle, and then use the Shrink/Fatten tool by pressing Alt plus S to make the central part larger. Press Ctrl plus Shift plus R to use the Offset Edge Loop Cut tool on this same edge to create 2 more, and adjust their sizes using Shrink/Fatten as well. Let's check the normals again, turn Matcap back on, and take a look at our final geometry. To clean up the shading of the model, let's add 7 loop cuts on the longer side and 5 on the shorter side. Now the transitions are much smoother and it looks way better. In Edit mode, delete 3/4 of our object so we can restore the final shape using a mirror modifier along the X and Y axes. Now, let's work on creating the cutout on this part. In the side view, tweak the topology of our object based on the reference. Select the necessary vertices with X-ray mode turned on and slide them twice by tapping G. Next, select the corresponding faces and delete them. After that, adjust the position of the inner vertices to match the shape of the cutout as closely as possible. To avoid adding extra geometry while keeping the cutout nice and smooth, bump up the levels of the Subdivision Surface modifier to 3. To close off the inner part, select a few vertices and extrude them along the Y-axis. Then, flatten them along the Y-axis by pressing S plus Y plus 0 and hitting Enter. Finally, let's snap the newly created vertices to the existing ones. Press G plus Y, then press B to change the snap source point and target the vertex you want to snap to. Create the last face by selecting 4 vertices and pressing F. Do the exact same procedure for the top side. Now, let's close everything completely by selecting just one edge and pressing F a few times. We'll create the necessary sharpness in this area using a bevel modifier. To do this, select the edges that need to be sharp and set their mean bevel weight to 1 in the sidebar. After that, add a bevel modifier and set its limit method to weight so it only affects the marked edges. Let's select the inner faces and slightly adjust their position so everything looks correct in the side view according to the reference, ensuring the inner part doesn't clip into our future strap. Turn matte cap back on. Let's make sure everything looks the way it's supposed to. Since we deleted 3/4 of the object and restored it with the mirror modifier, our top and bottom n-gons are gone. Let's close this back up with geometry by extruding one of the vertices to the center, selecting all the vertices, and pressing F to create a new n-gon here. Let's do one more check on the normals, the matte cap, and see how both parts look together. Now let's move on to creating the third part. The process here will be pretty similar to the first one. Select the top ring of vertices and duplicate them into a new object. Lower this object down according to the reference image. Close it all off with an n-gon and use the inset tool to insert 5 faces. Select everything except for the outermost ring of vertices, go to the side view, and lower them down based on the reference. Then, hold Ctrl to deselect the outer vertices and lower the remaining selected part. Finally, let's check the normals. This time, they are red. So select everything in edit mode and flip the direction of the normals. Turn matte cap back on and check the look of the model. We're specifically looking for any kind of stretching around the corners. Everything looks good here, so we can move forward. We'll create the fourth part from a circle. Add a circle with the standard 32 vertices to the scene and move it down. In edit mode, scale the circle down, match its shape to our reference, and start extruding the fourth part from it. First, extrude upward once, and then extrude downward, following the reference. As usual, add a Subdivision Surface modifier set to level 2 and apply Shade Smooth. Check the normals and flip them if they show up red. Select the next ring of edges. We'll create a small bevel here to make the transition more defined. Set the mean bevel weight of these edges to 1 for the bevel modifier and place the modifier right before the subdivision surface. Checking with matte cap again, we can see some minor shading artifacts from the ingon in the center. Let's use inset to insert another face, which instantly fixes all the stretching. At this point, it's a good idea to clean up the scene and give all objects meaningful names. After that, we can create 2 collections, one for the references and another for the main watch parts. Let's switch to the top view and start modeling the straps. Add a circle with 12 vertices to the scene and shift it along the Y-axis in edit mode. Position the circle and adjust its scale. After that, select the bottom half and duplicate it down along the Y-axis by about 6 grid cells. On the original circle, delete the bottom half, select the vertices in pairs, and create edges between them. Then, close it all up with an ingon. Use the inset tool to insert a face and then delete it. Select the bottom 7 vertices. Extrude them along the Y-axis by about 1 grid cell. Then, use Ctrl+R to create 3 loop cuts. Delete half of the object and restore it using a mirror modifier to cut our workload in half. In the upper section, we're basically doing the same thing, just tweaking the shape based on the reference. Extrude 4 vertices along the X-axis and then merge them with the existing top 4 vertices to close everything off with faces. Press Ctrl+R to create 5 loop cuts. Change the pivot point to active element, make the center vertex active, and scale each edge accordingly. Let's add a new object, a circle with 8 vertices. Using this circle and an array modifier, we'll need to create 14 holes in our strap. Adjust the size of the single circle, then select the first 3 vertices, extrude them along the X-axis, and align them in a straight line. You can delete the left half and assign a mirror modifier instead. Select one edge, duplicate it, and snap the bottom vertex to the top vertex of the adjacent edge. Merge the vertices at the snapping point using the Merge by Distance operator. To automatically create a vertex where 2 edges intersect, activate the Auto Merge and Split Edges and Faces options. Turn this option off immediately after so you don't accidentally create unwanted vertices later on. Create 2 faces here, then delete the 3 bottom vertices. Duplicate this object completely and mirror it along the Y-axis by pressing S plus Y plus -1 and hitting Enter. Then, use snapping to line everything up and combine them using Merge by Distance. To extrude the circle inward and create a support loop that we'll need later, we need to snap the 3D cursor to the center of our circle and switch the pivot point to 3D cursor. Now we can select the entire inner ring of the circle and extrude it inward. Add an array modifier. Set the count to 14 and specify the Y-axis for the array offset. Right now, you can see it doesn't fit into our designated area. But since our 3D cursor is at the center of the original circle and the pivot is set to 3D cursor, we can simply press S to scale our original object, which easily scales the entire length of the holes to fit the strap perfectly. Once you're happy with it, change the pivot point back to median point and apply both modifiers. In edit mode, check the face orientation to make sure all normals are facing toward us. After that, delete the left half of the object and double-check for any duplicate vertices using Merge by Distance. Select our whole object and the strap itself and join them together by pressing Ctrl+J. This way, the whole's object inherits all the modifiers we already set up, and we can keep working on it. Let's delete this highlighted face because we're about to extrude new vertices in this direction, so we don't need it here. Use snapping to align the inner object with the top part of the strap, and then shift the bottom part to align it with the bottom edge. Select the entire line of vertices except for the outer ones. Turn on Auto Merge and extrude everything to the right along the x-axis. Immediately delete any overlapping vertices and turn off Auto Merge. Then manually create two faces at the top and bottom. We just have a few more faces left to make. Create two faces in the bottom section and add a loop cut so we end up with a quad at the end. And let's do the exact same thing for the upper section. Add a Subdivision Surface modifier set to level 2, apply Shade Smooth, and double-check the normals. In Edit mode, let's first lower all the vertices slightly, using the reference as a guide. Then extrude them downward along the z-axis. Select the entire object and recalculate all normals outside by pressing Shift+N. Switch to Face Select mode. Select this specific region of faces and make absolutely sure you haven't selected any faces on the sides. If you accidentally selected side faces, deselect them so only the ones on the bottom flat plane remain highlighted. Choose the Extrude Manifold tool and extrude everything inward just a tiny bit. Snap the 3D cursor back to the center of the world coordinates and add an empty right at the center. Assign a simple deform modifier to the strap. Set the origin to our empty object. Switch the mode to bend and rotate the empty by -90 degrees along the x-axis. Next, adjust the parameters and position both the strap and the empty until you get the perfect placement for the strap in the scene. You can move the strap and the empty separately or move them together. Once the upper part of the strap is right where it needs to be, we'll jump into Edit mode and start reshaping the strap to perfectly match the cutout on the watch body. To do this, select individual faces or edges and move them down along the z-axis. Expand or narrow down the strap width if necessary. Overall, just keep an eye on how the final result looks and keep editing the object in Edit mode until you're completely satisfied. The hole should either remain circular or be slightly elongated vertically. To fix this, let's split our viewport in two. On the left side, go into Edit mode, switch to the top view, select all these holes, and scale them just a bit along the x-axis to give them an oval shape. We can instantly see the final deformed result on the right side of the screen. Once it looks good, exit Edit mode and evaluate the strap's appearance using MatCap. The beginning of the second strap has the exact same shape as the first one, so instead of modeling it from scratch, we can just select a portion of the original strap and duplicate it to the other side. Separate the selected vertices into a new object by pressing P. For this new object, let's temporarily delete the simple deform modifier and remove two extra vertices that got caught in the selection. Select everything in edit mode and press S plus Y plus -1, then enter to mirror the entire object. Fix the normal directions, and while still in edit mode, use snapping to flatten all the vertices into a single plane. In edit mode, move all the vertices to 0 on the Z-axis. After that, use the top view to position the start of the strap exactly where it belongs, and let's continue building it out. Align the outermost vertices along the Y-axis, and then extrude them along the Y-axis by about 6 grid cells. Turn off the clipping option for the mirror modifier. In this same edit mode session, add a circle with 12 vertices. Move the circle to the end of the strap, scale it down, and position it. Delete the left half, turn clipping back on, and snap the two halves together in the center. With edge length display turned on, we can check the length of the edge at the very tip of the strap. We'll now inset a new face inside our newly added circle at roughly that same distance. After that, inset another face inward by the exact same distance and delete the center face. Merge everything to the center and delete any stray edges left over in the middle of this object. Delete one edge and start connecting these two separate elements by closing them off with faces. Add loop cuts where necessary and move existing vertices to match. In the middle, let's add about 20 more loop cuts using Ctrl plus R to give it dense geometry. Add one more cut at the top across the faces we just created. To figure out the thickness we need for extruding this second strap, let's check the edge thickness of the first strap we modeled earlier. First, move all vertices into the correct area, then extrude them to match that height. To make it easier to snap to precise values, hold down the Shift key. This makes all your movements and adjustments much more precise. And, as per tradition, recalculate the normals outside. Next, switch back to face selection. Highlight these specific faces, select the Extrude Manifold tool, and extrude them inward a tiny bit as well. Now we'll repeat the exact same process we used for the left strap. Add another empty at the world origin, and add a simple deform modifier to the strap. Set the origin to the new empty. Switch the modifier mode to bend and curve our strap. Now that both straps are visible, we can fine-tune them individually and tweak their shapes. It feels like doing double the work, but there's no way to perfectly guess the size and lengths of both straps without knowing their exact final angles beforehand. So, we adjust everything by eye to make it look just right. For convenience, you can toggle the option to display the undeformed wireframe over the modified mesh to make editing easier. The actual physical vertices are still sitting right where they were in edit mode, but this view makes it much easier to select the elements we need. Select the vertices at the end of the second strap and simply rotate them, tucking one strap behind the other. Keep an eye out for any obvious clipping and tweak it until you get the look you want. Let's do one final pass over all the elements. Make sure everything looks polished, move specific vertices around in edit mode, and perfect the shape of the straps and how they fit together. Let's add a new circle with 8 vertices. From this circle, we'll create the keeper loop that holds the straps together. Physically, it should sit on the second strap, but there's no point in joining them together since you won't even see the connection when it's closed. So, we'll only model the part that will actually be visible in our final render. Make the circle significantly smaller, extrude it upward twice, close the top using grid fill, and expand the upper section using extrusion while excluding the Z-axis by pressing Shift plus Z from the scaling. After that, follow the standard workflow. Flip the normals, apply Shade Smooth, and add a Subdivision Surface modifier set to level 2. Move the origin of the object to the center of its geometry and place it right where it needs to go. And right here in the viewport, tweak its thickness and height to finalize the shape. Now, let's model the strap fastener loop using the exact same method we used for the second strap. Add a circle with 12 vertices to the scene. Move it off to the side. Delete the left half and assign a mirror modifier. Snap everything in the center, close it with a face, and insert a face inward using the inset tool. Now, position this element in the correct spot, and we'll adjust its size and thickness next. Assign a Subdivision Surface modifier set to level 2 and use additional support loops to give it the crisp shape we need. You can adjust the thickness to make it thicker or thinner and add holding loops to the inside just like we did on the outside. The result looks a bit too thick, so let's select the top faces and make the object a little slimmer. At the very end, let's do a classic matte cap check across the entire object. To wrap up the modeling phase, we'll do a final pass on our meshes and make our last few tweaks. Look it over from all angles to make sure you're completely happy with it. Nudge each element pixel by pixel to get everything ready for the next stage, where we'll create materials and textures. Once the model looks perfect, open up the outliner and give clean, organized names to all the objects in the scene. Then, move all the objects belonging to the straps into their designated collection. At this point, you can hide the reference collection since we won't be needing it anymore. Now we just have 2 clean collections left in our scene, body and belt, each containing their respective elements. And that wraps up our modeling phase. In the next video, we'll jump straight into creating the materials.